Millionaire sees a dirty girl selling flowers, buys them all, then finds his wedding ring inside. Thomas Reed, 68, carried the weight of his past like an invisible shroud. 5 years had passed since his beloved wife, Eleanor, had died in a tragic car accident, but the grief remained, a dull ache in his heart, a constant reminder of the life they had shared, the future they had lost. He was a millionaire, the founder of a successful architectural firm, a man who had designed and built soaring skyscrapers and elegant homes. But his own life felt empty, a hollow shell of its former self. He lived in a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of New Orleans, a house filled with exquisite art and antique furniture, but devoid of warmth, of laughter, of love. He had tried to move on, to find solace in his work, in travel, in the company of friends, but nothing seemed to fill the void that Eleanor had left behind. He had become a recluse, withdrawing from the world, isolating himself in his grief. His most cherished possession, a simple gold wedding band, had been lost on the day of Eleanor's death. He had been driving frantically to the hospital, his heart pounding with fear and dread, when he had realized that the ring was gone. He had searched everywhere, retraced his steps, but it was never found. The lost ring had become a symbol of his loss, a tangible representation of the love that had been snatched away from him. He had replaced it with another ring, a plain gold band that felt cold and unfamiliar on his finger. But it was not the same. It did not carry the weight of memories, the imprint of years of shared life, the silent promise of forever. He often found himself staring at his empty hand, remembering the day he had slipped the ring onto Eleanor's finger, the vows they had exchanged, the dreams they had shared. He remembered her smile, her laughter, her unwavering belief in him. He remembered the way she had made him feel, the sense of completeness, of belonging, of unconditional love. He had become a ghost of his former self, a man haunted by the past, unable to embrace the present, uncertain of the future. His wealth, his success, his accomplishments seemed meaningless in the face of his profound loss. He was a man adrift, a ship without a sail, lost in a sea of grief and regret. The ghost of the ring was a constant reminder of the life he had lost, the love he had cherished, and the future that had been cruelly stolen from him. He was living, but not truly alive, existing in a state of perpetual mourning, his heart heavy with the weight of his unspoken sorrow. The French market in New Orleans was a vibrant tapestry of sights, sounds, and smells. Vendors hawked their wares, tourists thronged the stalls, and the air was filled with the aroma of spices, seafood, and freshly brewed coffee. It was a place of life, of energy, of human connection, a stark contrast to the quiet solitude of Thomas Reed's mansion. Thomas had ventured out of his self-imposed isolation on a rare impulse, a desire to escape the suffocating silence of his home, to be surrounded by the bustle of everyday life. He had no particular destination in mind. He simply wanted to walk, to observe, to feel the pulse of the city. He found himself drawn to the French market, a place he had often visited with Eleanor, a place filled with memories of happier times. He wandered through the stalls, his eyes scanning the colorful displays of crafts, jewelry, and local produce, but his mind was elsewhere, lost in the labyrinth of his grief. As he rounded a corner, he saw her, a small girl, no older than 8, sitting on a threadbare blanket, surrounded by a meager collection of wildflowers. She was a picture of poverty, her clothes dirty and worn, her face smudged with grime, her hair tangled and unkempt. But her eyes, large and brown, held a spark of resilience, a hint of defiance, a glimmer of hope. She was holding up a small bouquet of wildflowers, a mixture of daisies, dandelions, and other common blooms, their colors vibrant against the backdrop of her drab surroundings. "Flowers, mister?" she asked, her voice small but clear. "Pretty flowers for your lady?" Thomas, usually oblivious to such encounters, stopped. He felt a pang of pity for the girl, a flicker of empathy for her plight. He also felt a strange sense of connection, a recognition of the shared human condition, the universal experience of loss and hardship. He looked at the flowers, their simple beauty a stark contrast to the elaborate bouquets he had often bought for Eleanor. He thought of Eleanor, of her love of wildflowers, of the joy she had found in the simplest of things. "How much?" he asked, his voice gruff but not unkind. The girl looked at him, her eyes assessing, her expression wary. 10 cents a bunch," she said, her voice hesitant. 10 cents. The flowers were probably worth even less than that. They were common weeds, gathered from the roadside, from vacant lots, from the edges of the city. But to this little girl, they were a means of survival, a way to earn a few coins, to help her family, to make a living. Thomas felt a sudden urge to help, to do something, anything, to alleviate the girl's hardship, even if only in a small way. He reached for his wallet, the same wallet he always carried, the symbol of his wealth, his success, his isolation. "I'll take them all," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. The girl's eyes widened in surprise. She looked at the pile of flowers, then back at Thomas, her expression a mixture of disbelief and cautious hope. "All of them, mister?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Thomas said, nodding. "All of them." He pulled out a $500 bill from his wallet, a crisp, new bill that felt strangely out of place in this setting, a symbol of the vast gulf that separated his world from the girl's. "Here," he said, handing her the money. "This should cover it." The girl stared at the bill, her eyes wide with astonishment. She had never seen so much money in her life. It was more than she and her mother earned in a month, more than she could even imagine. But mister," she stammered, "this is too much. The flowers are not worth that much." Thomas smiled, a rare and genuine smile that softened his features, erasing the lines of grief and worry. "Keep the change," he said. "Consider it a donation." The girl, still hesitant, reached out and took the bill, her small hand trembling slightly. She looked up at Thomas, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. "Thank you, mister," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Thank you so much." She carefully gathered the remaining bouquets, her small hands working quickly and efficiently. She tied them together with a piece of straw, creating a larger, more impressive bouquet. "Here," she said, handing the bouquet to Thomas. "This is for you, for being so kind." Thomas took the bouquet, the scent of the wildflowers filling his nostrils, a scent that transported him back to simpler times, to happier memories. He looked at the girl, at her bright smile, her grateful eyes, her dirty face. He felt a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, a feeling of genuine human connection. The marketplace and the wildflowers had become the setting for an unexpected encounter, a moment of grace, a spark of hope in the darkness of his grief. The weight of his wallet had been momentarily lifted, replaced by the lightness of a simple act of kindness, an act that was about to lead him on a journey of rediscovery and redemption. Thomas returned to his mansion, the bouquet of wildflowers clutched in his hand. The flowers seemed strangely out of place in the opulent surroundings, their simple beauty a stark contrast to the expensive artwork and antique furniture. He placed the bouquet in a vase, a crystal vase that had once held Eleanor's favorite roses. He looked at the flowers, at their vibrant colors, their delicate petals, their wild, untamed beauty. He felt a pang of sadness, a reminder of Eleanor, of her love of nature, of her appreciation for the simple things in life. He sat down in his study, a large, imposing room filled with leather-bound books and framed diplomas. He reached for the bouquet, intending to rearrange the flowers, to make them look more presentable. He untied the piece of straw that held the bouquet together, his fingers working automatically, his mind elsewhere, lost in memories of Eleanor. As he loosened the straw, something fell out of the bouquet, something small and metallic, something that glinted in the afternoon sunlight. He picked it up, his heart skipping a beat. He held it in his palm, his hand trembling slightly. It was a ring, a gold wedding band, worn and scratched, but instantly recognizable. It was his ring, the ring he had lost 5 years earlier, the day Eleanor had died. The ring that had become a symbol of his loss, a tangible representation of his broken heart. He stared at the ring, his mind reeling. How could this be? How could his ring, lost 5 years ago, reappear in a bouquet of wildflowers purchased from a little girl in the French market? It was impossible. It was a miracle. It was a sign. He examined the ring closely, turning it over and over in his hand. He saw the small inscription on the inside of the band. N.T. Forever. Eleanor and Thomas. Forever. Tears welled up in his eyes, tears of grief, of joy, of disbelief. He felt a surge of emotion, a wave of memories flooding back, a connection to Eleanor that he had thought was lost forever. The ring was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of their love, their commitment, their shared life. It was a reminder of the promises they had made, the dreams they had shared, the future they had planned. He clutched the ring tightly in his hand, his fingers closing around it, as if he were afraid it would disappear again. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a determination to find out how the ring had ended up in the bouquet of wildflowers, to find the little girl, to understand the mystery that had brought this precious object back into his life. The spark of the past had ignited a flame of hope, a flicker of possibility, a chance to reconnect with his lost love, to find meaning in his grief, to discover a new path forward. The ring was a message, a sign, a call to action, and Thomas Reed, the reclusive millionaire, was ready to answer. The weight of his grief had not disappeared, but it had shifted, transformed, become a catalyst for change, a driving force that would propel him out of his isolation and into a new chapter of his life. Lily lived with her mother, Sarah, in a small, one-room apartment above a dilapidated laundromat in a forgotten corner of New Orleans. Their life was a constant struggle, a daily battle against poverty, hardship, and the relentless grind of making ends meet. Sarah, 35, was a woman of quiet strength and unwavering resilience. She had faced more challenges in her short life than most people faced in a lifetime. She had grown up in poverty, dropped out of high school to care for her ailing mother, and had worked a series of low-wage jobs ever since. She had met Lily's father, a charming but unreliable musician, at a local bar. Their relationship had been brief and passionate, but it had ended shortly after Lily was born. He had drifted out of their lives, leaving Sarah to raise their daughter alone. 5 years earlier, Sarah had found a job as a trash collector, a physically demanding and often unpleasant job, but one that provided a steady, if meager, income. She worked long hours, often in the early morning darkness, collecting garbage from the streets and alleys of the city. It was during one of these early morning shifts, while sorting through a pile of rubble near a construction site, that she had found the ring. It had been lying amidst the broken bricks and discarded debris, a small, glinting object that had caught her eye. She had picked it up, examined it closely, and realized that it was a wedding ring, a gold band with an inscription on the inside. She had felt a pang of sadness for the person who had lost it, a sense of empathy for the loss and the heartbreak it represented. She had considered pawning the ring, knowing that it would bring in a few much-needed dollars. But she couldn't bring herself to do it. The ring felt too personal, too significant, too imbued with meaning. It felt like a connection to another person's life, a story waiting to be told. She had decided to keep it, to treasure it, to hope that one day she might be able to return it to its rightful owner. She had cleaned it, polished it, and placed it in a small, velvet-lined box, a box she had found at a thrift store. She kept the box hidden away, a secret treasure, a symbol of hope amidst the harsh realities of her life. She had told Lily about the ring, explaining that it belonged to someone else, that they needed to keep it safe, that one day they might be able to find the owner. Lily, with the innate wisdom of a child who has known hardship, understood the importance of the ring, the significance of Sarah's decision to keep it, to honor its story. Lily helped her mother as much as she could, doing chores around the apartment, running errands, and occasionally selling wildflowers in the French market to earn a few extra dollars. She was a bright, inquisitive child with a natural curiosity about the world, a resilience that mirrored her mother's. She had inherited her mother's strength, her determination, and her unwavering belief in the goodness of people, despite the hardships they had faced. Their life was far from easy, but it was filled with love, with a fierce bond between mother and daughter, with a shared determination to overcome adversity and to build a better future. Lily's story was one of resilience, of hope, of the enduring power of the human spirit to find beauty and meaning even in the most challenging of circumstances. Sarah's strength was the foundation of their lives, the bedrock upon which they built their dreams, the unwavering force that kept them going, even when the odds were stacked against them. The ring, found amidst the rubble, had become a symbol of their own resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a brighter future. Thomas, armed with the memory of the little girl and the location of the French market, returned the next day, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. He had dressed casually, in jeans and a simple shirt, trying to blend in to avoid drawing attention to himself. He wandered through the market, his eyes scanning the faces of the vendors and shoppers, searching for the girl with the wildflowers. He felt a sense of urgency, a need to find her, to unravel the mystery of the ring, to connect with the past that had suddenly resurfaced. He asked around, describing the girl to the other vendors, showing them the bouquet of wildflowers which he had carefully preserved. Some recognized the description, pointing him towards a particular corner of the market, near the entrance to a narrow alleyway. He found Lily sitting on her threadbare blanket, arranging a new batch of wildflowers. She looked up as he approached, her eyes widening in recognition. "Hello," Thomas said, his voice gentle, his expression kind. "Do you remember me?" Lily nodded, her eyes studying him cautiously. "You're the man who bought all my flowers," she said, her voice quiet but clear. "Yes," Thomas said, smiling. "That's right. And you gave me something very special." He held up his hand, showing her the ring on his finger. Lily's eyes widened again, this time with understanding. "Mama's ring," she exclaimed, her voice filled with surprise. "You found it." Thomas knelt down, his eyes level with hers. "Your mother found it," he corrected gently, "and you gave it back to me. It belonged to my wife. She died a few years ago. I lost the ring on the day she died." Lily's expression softened, her eyes filled with empathy. She understood loss. She had lost her sister and the familiar presence of a father. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you," Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. "It means more to me than you can possibly know." He paused, gathering his thoughts. Can you take me to your mother?" he asked. "I'd like to thank her to—" Lily hesitated for a moment, her eyes searching his face, assessing his sincerity. She had been taught to be wary of strangers, to protect herself and her mother. But there was something in this man's eyes, a kindness, a sadness, a vulnerability that reassured her. "Okay," she said, nodding. "But she's working. We have to wait." Thomas agreed to wait. He sat down on the blanket beside Lily, watching her arrange the wildflowers, asking her questions about her life, her school, her dreams. He learned about her love of drawing, her fascination with the bridges of New Orleans, her desire to become an artist. He told her a little about Eleanor, about her love of flowers, about her kindness, about her spirit. He didn't mention his wealth, his business, or his social status. He simply talked to her as a person, as a friend, as someone who cared. As they waited, Thomas observed the life of the market, the hustle and bustle of the vendors, the throngs of tourists, the colorful displays of goods. He realized how disconnected he had become from the everyday world, how isolated he had been in his grief and his wealth. He saw the struggles of the people around him, the challenges they faced, the resilience they displayed. He saw the dignity in their work, the pride in their creations, the unwavering hope in their eyes. He began to understand the true value of the ring, not as a piece of jewelry, but as a symbol of human connection, a reminder of the kindness and generosity that could be found even in the most unexpected places. Finally, as the afternoon shadows began to lengthen, Lily told him that her mother would be arriving soon. Her shift at the waste management company finished for the day. She pointed towards the alleyway, where a woman was approaching, pushing a large, battered trash can. It was Sarah, her face tired and streaked with grime, her clothes stained and worn, but her eyes holding the same spark of resilience that he had seen in her daughters. The search had ended, and the meeting was about to begin, a meeting that would change all of their lives forever. The marketplace, once a backdrop to his grief, had become the stage for a new beginning, a new connection, a new understanding of the world and his place within it. As Sarah approached, Lily ran to greet her, her small arms wrapping around her mother's waist. Sarah hugged her daughter tightly, her eyes closing for a moment, savoring the embrace, the love, the connection that sustained her through the hardships of her life. Then she saw him, the man sitting on the blanket with Lily, the man who had bought all the flowers, the man who was now looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. "Mama," Lily said, her voice excited, "this is the man who lost the ring." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. She recognized the ring, of course, the ring she had found in the rubble, the ring she had treasured for so long. She looked at Thomas, her expression guarded, her body tense. "Hello," Thomas said, standing up, his voice respectful, his demeanor humble. "My name is Thomas Reed. Your daughter, she returned something very precious to me." He held out his hand, showing her the ring. Sarah's eyes flickered to the ring, then back to Thomas's face. She felt a mixture of emotions, surprise, confusion, suspicion, and a flicker of something else, something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. "You're the owner?" she asked, her voice cautious, her eyes searching his. "Yes," Thomas said, nodding. "It was my wife's wedding ring. I lost it the day she died." Sarah's expression softened slightly. She understood loss. She understood grief. She understood the pain of losing someone you loved. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice genuine, her eyes filled with empathy. "Thank you," Thomas said, "and thank you for finding it, for keeping it safe, for giving it back to me." He paused, then added, "Lily told me you found it in the rubble near a construction site." Sarah nodded. "I work for the city," she said, her voice matter-of-fact. "Waste management. I found it while I was on my shift." She didn't apologize for her job, didn't try to hide her circumstances. She was poor, but she was proud. She worked hard to provide for her daughter, and she wasn't ashamed of her work. Thomas looked at Sarah, at her tired but determined face, at her worn but strong hands, at her honest and unwavering gaze. He saw a woman of immense strength, of resilience, of dignity. He saw a woman who had faced adversity with courage and grace. He felt a surge of respect for her, a sense of admiration for her unwavering spirit. He also felt a profound sense of guilt, a realization of the vast gulf that separated their lives, a recognition of the privileges he had taken for granted. "I want to thank you," he said, his voice sincere. I want to do something for you. For you and Lily." Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly, her suspicion returning. She had been offered charity before, had been treated with condescension, with pity, with thinly veiled contempt. She didn't want his money. She didn't want his pity. She wanted his respect. "We don't need anything," she said, her voice firm, her chin lifted in defiance. "We're doing just fine." Thomas understood her reaction. He knew that he couldn't simply buy her gratitude, that he couldn't erase the years of hardship with a check. He had to earn her trust. He had to prove to her that his intentions were genuine, that he wasn't just another wealthy man looking for a way to ease his conscience. "I know you don't need anything," he said, his voice gentle, his eyes meeting hers. "But I want to help. You gave me back something priceless, something that means more to me than any amount of money. I want to repay your kindness, your honesty, your integrity." He paused, then added, "I also want to get to know you, you and Lily. You've given me a gift, a connection to my past, a reason to hope again." The meeting, held amidst the fading light of the marketplace, was a delicate dance of suspicion and sincerity, of pride and gratitude, of loss and rediscovery. It was a conversation that transcended the boundaries of wealth and poverty, of social status and personal history. It was a human connection, forged in the crucible of shared experience, a connection that held the promise of a brighter future for all of them. Beyond the rubble of their past lives, a new foundation was being laid, a foundation built on respect, on understanding, and on the unexpected bonds of human kindness. Thomas's offer of help was not a grand, sweeping gesture, but a series of carefully considered actions designed to empower Sarah and Lily without diminishing their pride or independence. He didn't simply write a check and walk away. He invested his time, his energy, and his genuine concern. He started by addressing their immediate needs. He found them a safe, comfortable apartment in a better neighborhood, a place with sunlight, space, and a small garden where Lily could play. He made sure the apartment was fully furnished, not with extravagant furniture, but with practical, durable pieces that would make their lives easier. He helped Sarah enroll in a GED program, supporting her dream of completing her education. He also connected her with a career counselor, helping her explore job opportunities that aligned with her skills and interests. He didn't push her. He simply provided her with the resources and the encouragement she needed to pursue her own goals. He spent time with Lily, taking her to the zoo, the aquarium, the art museum. He discovered her love of books, and he made sure she had a library card and access to a wide range of reading materials. He encouraged her artistic talents, providing her with art supplies and arranging for her to take lessons from a local artist. He also made sure that Sarah and Lily had access to quality health care, covering their medical expenses and ensuring that they received the best possible care. He understood that health was the foundation of well-being, that without it, all other opportunities were diminished. He did all of this quietly, discreetly, without fanfare or publicity. He didn't want to be seen as a savior, a benefactor, a wealthy man dispensing charity. He wanted to be seen as a friend, a mentor, a partner in their journey toward a better life. He also learned from them. He learned about resilience, about perseverance, about the strength of the human spirit. He learned about the challenges of poverty, the systemic inequalities that perpetuated hardship, the daily struggles that so many people faced. He learned about the importance of community, of support networks, of the simple acts of kindness that could make a profound difference in people's lives. He learned about the power of hope, the unwavering belief in a better future, the determination to overcome adversity. He found himself spending more and more time with Sarah and Lily, sharing meals, celebrating holidays, and simply enjoying each other's company. He became a regular fixture in their lives, a trusted friend, a father figure to Lily, a confidant to Sarah. He fell in love with Sarah again, but he didn't confess. He respected her very much. They in turn welcomed him into their lives, their small circle of friends and family. They shared their stories, their dreams, their fears. They laughed together, cried together, and supported each other through thick and thin. They became an unconventional family, a family forged not by blood, but by shared experience, by mutual respect, and by a growing sense of love and belonging. The millionaire, the trash collector, and a little girl selling wildflowers had found each other, had connected through a lost ring and a shared humanity, and had created a bond that transcended social barriers and personal tragedies. The act of helping had become an act of healing, not just for Sarah and Lily, but for Thomas as well. He had found a new purpose in life, a new reason to live, a new family to cherish. Years later, the landscape of their lives had been irrevocably altered, not by a sudden windfall of fortune, but by the gradual, steady growth of a relationship rooted in kindness and respect. Lily, no longer the dirty-faced girl selling wildflowers, was a bright, confident young woman. She had graduated high school with honors and was attending college on a scholarship, pursuing her dream of becoming an architect, inspired by the man who had once bought all her flowers. She had inherited her mother's strength and her father's, in her mind, who is Thomas. I for design, a combination that promised a bright future. Sarah had earned her GED and, with Thomas's support, had opened a small but thriving flower shop in the neighborhood where they now lived. It wasn't the art gallery she had once dreamed of, but it was a place of beauty, of community, and of personal fulfillment. She had a natural talent for floral arrangements, creating stunning bouquets that reflected her own vibrant spirit and her appreciation for the simple beauty of nature. The shop was named Eleanor's Blooms, a tribute to the woman whose lost ring had brought them all together. Thomas had stepped back from the day-to-day operations of his architectural firm, entrusting the leadership to his capable team. He still maintained an office, but he spent most of his time on philanthropic endeavors, supporting organizations that help families in need, promoting education, and fostering the arts. He had also become a mentor to young architects, sharing his knowledge, his experience, and his passion for design. He remained close to Sarah and Lily, their bond strengthened by years of shared experiences, mutual support, and unwavering affection. They were family, not in the traditional sense, but in the truest sense of the word. They celebrated holidays together, shared meals, and supported each other through life's ups and downs. He became a grandfather when Lily had a baby boy. He had the family, which he wanted for a long time. The lost wedding ring, once a symbol of grief and loss, had become a symbol of hope, of redemption, of the transformative power of human connection. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, kindness could bloom, that even in the most unexpected places, love could be found. The change of fate had been profound, not just for the millionaire who had lost his way, but for the woman and child who had shown him the path back to a life of meaning, purpose, and genuine happiness. The rubble had been cleared, the foundations had been laid, and a new, unconventional, but deeply loving family had blossomed, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit and the unexpected ways in which fate can intertwine our lives. The ring was no longer just a memento of a lost love. It was a symbol of a new love, a new family, and a new beginning. And Thomas, surrounded by the people he loved, finally understood that he had found something far more valuable than he had ever lost.